Hi there, it's Thaddeus with the patch rundown for Seeds of Unity. I'm going to go through some meta takes on what's going to change, what's going to be new with this patch, what decks are we going to see, etc. And also go through kind of like what this changes about gameplay and altered and how we're going to see this shake out. So we're going to do it live, change this through. So on Thursday, the 12th, which is in 2 days, we will see this patch actually appear on Board Game Arena. As we go down here, we have our first change, which was on the watch list, is Sigismar. So let me scroll up to make sure you can see here. At noon, we create an Ortis 1/1 recruit soldier, so the standard hero power that it had before, except it's only going to happen after the first day. So that first day, we're not going to see a token. I think this is a great change. It keeps Sigismar around. Some people are saying that it might be a little bit too light of a nerf on Sigismar after their recent showings, but I think this is going to be great. The main thing I'll show off here is, let's say we have, first day, right? And we can draw on here of Sigismar gets their 1/1/1 out on day 1. We have 3 mana, right? But the problem is that on that first day, having 3 mana means that in order to contest both sides as a non-Sigismar player, or assuming we don't have a token, what we need is a 1-drop and a 2-drop, or 2 1-drops sometimes, but 2 1-drops in most other factions are pretty hard to compete with a 1/1/1. Think of like Lyra's 1-drops, 1/1/0s, etc. So what ends up happening is that in this situation, you either need to play, have to play onto, if you're going first, you have to play onto the side of the 1/1/1. Because if you go first and you play like a 2 mana card, for example, and you play, I don't know, or a 3 mana card and you play over here and you play like a 2/2/2 or a 3/3/3 or something like that on this side for 3 mana, Sigismar can just take the win. They don't have to play any cards. They don't have to do anything else. They could even play like a landmark, and that's super strong for them with their mana, and they still go 1-for-1. However, in the case where we're going second, or even so we have to play this card over here. So let's say I play lots of Bravos. We play Haven Sarengar over on this side, so we have a 3/1/1, right? That uses up 2 of our mana crystals or mana orbs, and we're now contesting this side. We're winning on this side, but we don't have anything on this side. All Sigismar has to do is either play something here to beat us, so pretty easy to get 2 in the mountain stat, so they can beat us with a 2/2/2. Which case, lots of 2/2/2s in Sigismar to be able to play. Now we have to hope we have a 1-drop that we can play over here to contest. If not, then Sigismar just goes 1-0, which makes it really hard. But on turn 2 is what we look at. We can go back down here with Sigismar with their 1/1/1s. Delete some of these. We can see that we have 4 mana orbs, which means that it's so much more likely in so many more decks to have two 2-drops, right? You don't need to rely on having a 1-drop in order to play. So you can play your 2-drop over here, again, that Haven Sarengar, which we'll talk about later. Over here, you've only used up 2 of your mana orbs. Sigismar still has like that, can play both sides. But with 4 mana, you're likely getting a bit more value. You can play something like, again, I'm playing Basira. I play a lot of Basira. You might have a Chiron over here, in which case you can play a 1/1/1 and which boost it to a 2/2/2 or even a 3/3/3 with Basira's hero power, or you can put that boost over here. So it's much more competitive on turn 2 for a lot of decks to be able to actually contest that other side. But that turn 1, if you don't have basically Sigismar gets a free 1-0 on you, 2-0 on you, or a 2-1. And so this is a really good patch, I think, for this case. really lets us. It also means that Sigismar really has to commit in that first turn. It means their card advantage is going to go down. I think this is fantastic. So yeah, that's great all around. Next up is suspensions. So these were on watch lists. We weren't sure what exactly was going to happen with these cards, but I think that it's super interesting what they're going to do. So we have Tiny Jin and Haven Sarengar both being suspended, both the common and rare, inside of Bravos. The Lyra one of Haven Sarengar and the Muna Tiny Jin are sticking around. Doesn't seem like they wanted to change this at all. I'm sad about these changes, as I just said. Like, I play a lot of Bravos, but I think they were needed. Tiny Jin really, really lets all Kojo decks, Basira decks, basically everything just accelerate so much faster if you get that on turn 1 and then play it out on turn 2, get some mana. It just means that, like, and also 1 mana for 2 in a stat is pretty powerful with an additional effect. And so this can just be really amazing, and I think it just carries the game. Sarengar is played in basically every deck, just every Bravos deck, just for that draw. It also has really, really nice stats. Like, I think they could have maybe just hit the stats a little bit on this card to keep that draw rounds, but honestly, suspending cards is fine. It just makes it easier as well for things like draft and whatnot. You don't have to remember what the errata is. You just have to remember it's banned. So these two cards, unfortunate that they're going to go away. I think Kojo and Basir are still going to be strong. Without these cards, something is going to go up and fill their place. We have Seeds of Unity coming out very soon. And so, yeah, I think this is totally fine for Bravos. They're not dead in the water at all. Like, this is going to be good. It's just going to tamp down some of their power as they've been dominating the meta lately, which I'll go over in a little bit. Yeah, and they outline why they've done these, but yeah, suspensions there. Next up is our Axiom suspensions. We have Frankenstein, Grems, and Restocking Station. I think the reasoning behind all of this makes a lot of sense. Frankenstein is just so much value out of reserve, especially in Traced. I think it's hard to change this card without like ruining its identity. And it's just the rare that's going away, which is nice. So Frankenstein, I think, this will hurt. All of these are targeted Traced, as we can see. I know Grimes is also good, and Restocking Station are also good in other decks, but Dr. Frankenstein especially, really big player in Traced. We'll kind of see what it changes here, but I think these are overall good changes. But Traced is going to just need to find something else to put here. Grems as well. This is only the common Grems that's being replaced. So we still see rare Grems fill that slot. I think it just means that now Trace is going to have to fight for that rare slot. And now, like we saw, Dr. Frankenstein is going away, so maybe we trade out some of the power, put some rare Grems back in there. Just means that you can't throw this in as a 3 of common all the time. And also the cheap removal on the Grems is really good. Things like Festival, and yeah, Festival is going to be pretty strong here because Festival is not 3 mana or less, but any kind of Sierra decks that have lots of permanence, or those low cost Bravos uniques, or it's Saudi with their Eat Me energy bars, it's going to be very interesting to see that the Grems now needs to take that rare slot for any kind of decks, which I think is good. Like that kind of removal, that kind of power. It was a 2 mana for basically a 3/4/4 that you can also put in Target Expedition, which I think is a big part of it, right? You can build up on both sides. And a lot of that time, the sacrificing of the permanent was actually a benefit now that Aeroliths exist. So Grem's just really strong. I'm not surprised that it's gone, but I'm kind of glad it's just the rare. Especially with so many other things being hit. Restocking Station, I think this is also part of that, like, Traced really gets a lot of value out of their power later on in just having a lot of card advantage and being able to play cheap units and then still having that draw and put in reserve, and then being able to put in reserve and get more value. And Restocking Station really, really allowed Traced to, when they didn't have their power, or when they didn't have or when they had powerful uniques, to just keep playing those uniques, keep slamming them. And I think this will tamp down on that power quite a bit, get rid of those crazy Anansi uniques that just keep going through. So again, overall really interesting, but Traced I think is going to have a bit of a hit here, just in terms of keeping up with meta decks. And so it's just bringing it kind of more in line with some of the other decks that are out there. Yeah, some other changes that are interesting here. A little bit less meta, but Celebration Day feels really bad to play against. And I really like what Equinox is doing here, getting rid of some of these feel bad decks. I am a huge proponent. I hate these decks. People like Runefolk play this nonstop in Waru, as well as Hostage Moyo. But what you do is you build Celebration Day with cards like Isatok, and basically just try to draw as many of your cards as possible using uniques that draw three cards. And eventually you draw your whole deck and you're able to just Celebration Day, small step kind of thing, and win the game. So it's really interesting. Like, it's too bad that this kind of strategy is going away, because it's very interesting, but it did feel very bad to play against. I think this will just basically stop the deck from existing for the most part. It's just not going to be competitively viable. People will still play it probably, but it's with Isatox and other things. But Celebration Day was such an important part of that deck to really make it consistent. Watch list, Counting Sheep. This card's crazy. It just mainly for festival. So what you can do is on turn 1, you can play a couple cards. One goes into reserve. Maybe you draw something as a festival deck. Then what you do is you, on turn 2 with 4 mana, you play festival. And then on turn 5, you can play Counting Sheep, your card from reserve, and maybe like a something that anchors, like a sticky shroom from hand, and you just win the game. It's really crazy, really strong. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of festival coming up, especially with Traced being pushed down a little bit in the meta. We won't see them as much, maybe. And they were holding them down just because Grems was so powerful again. The rare Grems specifically is so powerful against it. Yeah. So that's very interesting. We've also added or the Lyra Bastion. This is for decks that basically there was a deck for Traced specifically, but also some other decks that would keep putting things in reserve, and then with reserve effects like what's it called? Inari. Is this the card? Yeah, where from reserve activate the arrow abilities of cards you control. So you can use that on the Bravos Haven, the Bravos Bastion, to resupply. There's also one that just does a resupply from reserve. So like you could basically infinitely get these, because Lyra Bastion makes resupply so consistent by being able to choose which one of those you get, and then you can basically draw your whole deck, find your boom or removal, and then use it, and then use it again. Like it can be broken, but you need to get enough mana. It's on the edge of being crazy. And also what they talk about, it just takes a long time. Being able to it just cycle through your whole deck just wastes a lot of time. It spends a lot of time on animations in BGA, so it's just frustrating to play. It can be frustrating to play against. So I understand this is listed. They've also added multi-anchoring uniques. This is for Tasia decks. Let's see if we can find like a Tasia deck that has these. Let's see here. Yeah, something like this Moonic Caregiver. When a character you control gains a boost, up to 2 more boosted characters. Something gets with hand cost 3 or less gains anchored. So these would just let you basically anchor forever if you have 2 of them on the field. Became really, really hard to deal with, except when you have like the Hunger or some other board removal like Blizzard. But yeah, it felt very unwinnable. It's very difficult. So it makes sense that they're watching those to make sure that that doesn't become an unfun situation. They talk about the Hunger. I'm a Bravos player, so we'll start with that. But the Hunger is, I think it's going to be fine. It's not played in Izmir, and they call that out here, I think, right? Yeah, it doesn't we haven't seen it played like a ton in Izmir. It is played, but it doesn't feel as bad. It feels bad in Bravos because Kojo and Basira can get so far ahead early, or at least like, one or two expeditions up, and also ramp mana with their Djinns. So now that Tiny Djinn is gone, and some of the draw from Haven Sarengar, but especially Tiny Djinn, you can't play Hunger as early. And that's really what it is, because if we end up in a situation where we're on the board and, the expeditions are here, you're one away, the Bravos player is one away, but you're back here. If they play the Hunger, like, you need to have removal, otherwise you lose, which feels very bad. But if they're back here and they only need they need 2 advances to go forward, they play this and you do have removal. Now all of a sudden you can catch up. Like, you remove the Hunger, you maybe even play both sides, and now you're one away from winning. So like, the Hunger, and also they've just used up all their mana. So like, the Hunger does have a lot of downsides and really, really can be tricky to play as a Bravos player. And I highly recommend go play a Bravos deck with the Hunger if you hate the Hunger. Just like, play a couple games of it, see what happens when you draw the Hunger and it sits in your hand all game, or how you don't get to you basically can never play it sometimes, because if you do, you might just lose on the spot. And that is why I think the Hunger is not actually a problem, except because Kojo and Tiny Djinn can make such an impact. So yeah, I think those are all the changes. There's a couple of other little changes around, reshuffling. This is also for the Ouroboros Hyperloop deck, and also Prison or Hostage style decks that we were talking about for Waru and Izmir. It just means that when you draw your deck, you now have to wait till the next morning to draw more cards, because that's the only time you can reshuffle. I think that's a good change for the health of the game. Being able to draw your whole deck basically constantly, for in some cases, really, really makes it so like that game feels unwinnable. And I just think that's a feels bad thing, not necessarily like, it does limit creativity a bit, but it I think is good for the health of the game overall. The last thing is that Della and Bolts, the Foundry, Axiom Bastion, which is you can activate the reserve effect of a character. It was errated to allow multiple triggers. So if you had 2 Bastions, you could trigger both of them, I believe, and then you could trigger a reserve ability twice. But they unchanged this to only allow 1 trigger of a character. But you can still activate the reserve abilities of a different character on a different turn. So I think that's a good change from people testing Della, especially. So Della is, let's get Della. Della, you can ready a permanent. So what you could do is you could tap Bravos Bastion, Axiom Bastion, and then you could tap Della and tap it again, and then you could now get double triggers on some crazy uniques and just crazy cards in general that allow you to play things from reserve. There's none that are here because I've had Della searched, but things like Smoldering Djinn, like being able to play this out of hand for 2 mana and ramping twice is, for 1 card, is insane as a common. Like, that's just kind of broken. And so they wanted to make sure things like that didn't happen. I think it's good. It is unfortunate because I think I'm really I'm excited for the Axiom Bastion to see some play, and like this might hurt that a little bit, but should be exciting what's coming up. So what's next? Oh, right. And also rotation. Rotation will come out following in set 7, so after Roots of Corruption. So we have 2 more sets, so like 6 more months of Altered before we'll see these set rotations, which I think is good. We are losing 3 of our sets, well, 4 if you include the Kickstarter edition, but this is just good for any card game. It lets them do new things, try out new stuff. They might even reprint some cards, who knows? And it also we will also see heroes rotate out, but again, we might see reprints. So overall, super exciting. I just wanted to cover that quick. There's a couple of other little things, but really excited about this change overall for Altered. And I think really I had some of the stats up, but this is what we're going to see is Sigismar will be a little bit lower, I think, especially in response to a patch like this. People overestimate how bad it is. I think we'll see a little bit less Sigismar, but I think they'll still be up there. Kojo and Basira also got hit pretty hard here, so as you can see, these are just the top heroes. And also we can see that like Haven Sarangar and Tiny Jin were just so highly played that it's going to give also Kojo and Basira new rare slots to play around with, which is super fun. Also we're going to see Traced go down a little bit. I think it's too bad because I think Trace just has some really bad matchups like into Basira. So I think Basira might actually like pop up here. The other thing people are worried about, and I've seen people talking about, are Rin decks and also Tasia decks. Festival is going to be huge. We're going to be on the watch out for how that comes into play. I think a lot more people are going to try it out because it can be consistent and also just like win in general in our Rin things, as well as in Fen decks. Like Fen is going to be really interesting here, but Grems didn't really go away. Like rare Grems is still going to exist. If we look at our Traced games, here's Rink. Oh, this is Singleton. Like they're playing common Grems, but like oftentimes there's a one of like Grems, and this is specifically for things like Festival. So I think Festival's still going to have a hard time, even with just the common Grems going away, but we'll see how it goes. Atsadi is also going to see some interesting changes with no rare Tiny Jins. See how that goes. Soul, I think, will mostly be kind of unchanged. We'll see. Tasia is also probably going to be a bit strong. But I think what this does for the game here is really makes card advantage very important, because Bravos just had card advantage and mana advantage, and now card advantage is going to be super important in all of your games. Sabotage, removal, things like that I think are going to be come up a lot more, because there aren't these like huge ramp capabilities and very, very strong cards. And also we've got a couple new heroes coming out, so I'm really excited for this patch. I just want to give my thoughts on it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.